thing here. We have Apex locations across Montana and Billings, Kalispell, Missoula, Southwest Montana, Great Falls, and Lewistown. And you can see the map here by those different centers. We are here to help you. So after this presentation, it's likely you've already talked to someone in one of these centers if you're joining this webinar, but you can always find the Apex government contracting advisor near you by going to our website, which is montanaptac.org. And if you click on the locations tab, you'll find all our contact information in here. At this website too is a great opportunity to find new information, articles, sign up for our events and other webinars. And also you can subscribe to our quarterly newsletter. So what do? We provide no cost assistance to businesses that want to explore the government market. We help you with federal, state, and local contracting. The types of services we offer are some basic technical hands-on assistance, helping you get registered in systems like SAM or the EMAC system with the state of Montana so that you're eligible to bid on opportunities. We help you learn how to research the market and develop and find the opportunities. We also will help review bid proposals, and we invite you to networking events. We had some great networking events this last spring at Maelstrom that were supported by both our Lewistown office and the Great Falls office. There were great opportunities to come together. Coming up in August, we have a networking event for the Navy Days that's going to be in Billings. So look out for notices about those upcoming opportunities, and it's a great way for you to network with the government agencies. So today, we're going to talk about small business programs. And the SBA is the overarching monitor of all these programs. The small business programs are for different socio and economic categories. And I would say that you do have to be a small business to be eligible for them, and most of our Montana businesses are. And being a small business is an advantage on its own without having a certification, because all opportunities under $250,000 are typically set aside for small business. And that is one of the federal contracting goals, to get more small business involved in government contracting. But if you qualify for one of these special certifications, it can really help your business. And because it's a really great marketing tool, it kind of helps level the playing field. So you have opportunities to market and to show to the agencies that you have this special qualification and that you've been certified by the SBA for that. When contracts are set aside for these small business programs, can be an advantage to that too. So it can limit competition for an even playing field. And then it also may give you access to additional tools and resources to help your business. So what we always say is, like, if you qualify, it's always a good thing to go out and get these certifications. To be eligible for any of these programs, you must be registered in the system for award management, be small, be based on the SBI size standards. And those are what is set forth in the SAM registration. When you register, you represent and certify the size and type of industry you are. And that's how SBA recognizes small businesses. You must be a for-profit business too, to be recognized as a small business. You can't be a not-for-profit. You need to be less, each company must at least, the person that qualifies for the program must be 51% ownership or more. And it could be a combination of two people. So two service disabled veterans own 70% of the company. You have to be a US citizen, and you have to be able to provide proof of ownership and control. And we're going to go more into what that means a little bit later. Some of the programs also have additional requirements. Sometimes it has to do with this meeting certain financial thresholds to show economic disadvantage, and also providing documentation that can support the socioeconomic disadvantage. So some programs all these programs don't have the same, rules. They all have different specific rules that are outlined in the Code of Federal Regulations. So you may also have to provide details about your affiliated businesses and other contributors to your business. You have to, for all government contracting, show that you have good character. You have to be responsive and responsible contractor. And you may have to demonstrate the potential for success in government contracting, such as having been in business for at least 2 years or having other past performance in government contracts. And so not every program requires that, but I know that at least the 8A does. So it's important to know that there are going to be distinctions between each of these programs. So we're going to just go on a quick tell you about which programs are which, and then later we'll tell a little bit more about those programs. The 8A Business Development Program is a one-time certification, and it lasts for a 9-year period. It's meant to help a business kind of grow their government contracts over that time. And the one thing I didn't mention before is SBA, and all federal agencies have goals to hire so many small businesses. And each of these programs have goals assigned to them. So 5% of federal contracting dollars will go to 8A businesses across all agencies. What that means too is 8A is primarily for minority-owned businesses, but it could also apply to other types of socio-disadvantaged people. HUBZone. HUBZone stands for Historically Underutilized Business Zone. And these HUBZones were created and they're actually modified every 5 years in order to capture areas where there's a high level of unemployment or lack of business growth. And they're meant to encourage businesses to, this program is meant to encourage and provide incentives so that businesses get government contracts, hire more employees, and do other things to benefit the communities that these hub zones are located in. The hub zones can be as small as a census tract or as large as a county. And so it's important to know how to research if you're in the hub zone, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Economically disadvantaged women-owned small business and women-owned small business programs all help level the playing field for women business owners. Some certain contracts can be set aside for those businesses that participate in this federal contracting program. The goal for this program is 5% of government-wide contracts go to women or economically disadvantaged women. And the set-aside contracts are meant for underrepresented industries. Veteran Small Business Certification, VetCert, is the new SBA program for veteran certification. We'll talk a little bit more about the transition between the VA program that was in effect for many years, and then the new SBA program, and how they transferred over. But those are these obviously are for service disabled vets and veteran owned small businesses. So what kind of type contracts? So contracting officers can use set asides for sole source contracts set asides for any kind of contract, and also do sole source contracting to help small businesses meet, to help the government meet the small business goal, right? So let me take a drink while I get my thoughts together here. Sorry. All right, now I'm back on track. The one thing I like to say is that, again, just being a small business is an advantage in federal contracting, and that also each agency is assigned the goals by the SBA to hire the small business the small businesses that are certified in these economic and socio categories. So what is a sole source contract? It can be issued without competitive bidding process. And and it can happen for only if only one business can perform the work, right? The set aside contract can be set aside, and it limits competition in a couple of different ways. The two kinds of set asides. One could be for just only woman-owned small business can apply. And then there's other types of set asides that are for multiple types of programs, and they can be set aside. So if a small, so they can be set aside for a small business and HUBZone business, for example. So for example, if let's say you do firefighting work for the U.S. Forest Service, many of their contracts you'll see are set aside for the socioeconomic programs, and they have they get a financial advantage or a parity on their pricing if they fall under HUBZone or woman-owned or something like that, where the small business only wouldn't have that 5% or up to 10% advantage in some cases. Okay. The one thing that has to happen to get these contract types going is that the government is required to do market research to understand who can perform on the requirement. And so that's an important feature of when the actual contracting officer is developing their solicitation package. So let's talk a little bit more about each of these programs. So we talked about 8A type, works with disadvantaged business owners, and it typically falls within what we typically think of the minority-owned businesses. But it's also can be used for other types of businesses. For example, a woman-owned business who can provide evidence that they've been socially disadvantaged in government contracting. And what that means is that if for a woman to qualify for the 8A program, they would have to prove that they've been looked over on contracts or not had the same opportunity, and have a historical record of that in order to prove their social disadvantage. And so this program, we're going to talk a little bit about the benefits next. So of course, it's an efficient way to receive set aside and sole source contracts. It's managed really by the SBA, and the contracts kind of filter through the SBA on this program. So you get the one-on-one business development assistance for a 9-year period. And you can also participate in mentor protege program. Although the SBA has an all small business mentor protege program, one of the initial ones was with the 8A program, where a seasoned 8A company would take a new 8A company under their wing and help partner with and collaborate with them to do contracting. And then that helps build the business development for that new participant in the program. Sometimes 8As pursue joint ventures, which also helps increase their capacity. And the SBA provides free training to everybody that's in the 8A program. It's called 7J Management and Technical Assistance Program. And they have really good business training for those companies. You must meet all the requirements of the 8A contracting program to be eligible and participate. You must be owned and controlled by one or more of the socio disadvantaged individuals. And you also have to meet these financial thresholds, net worth of less than 750, income of each individual that's the owner of less than $350,000 adjusted gross, and no more than 6 million or less in personal assets. So this is one program where that requirement of meeting financial thresholds is part of the application and part of the documentation that you to prove it. So HUBZone. So unlike the other socioeconomic programs such as service disabled vet or women owned, the HUBZone program is not based on socioeconomic status. It's based on location. So there's no income or net worth requirements, and there's no racial, ethnic, or gender preferences to this program. You have to be a small business. You have to be 51% unconditionally directly controlled by U.S. citizen. Your business principal office has to be located in a HUBZone, and at least 35% of your employees must reside in a HUBZone. And that could be any HUBZone across the whole country. It doesn't have to be in the same HUBZone as the principal office. And so when you can meet these requirements, then the benefits to the HUBZone is that you can get HUBZone set-asides. There is a lot of financial parities for HUBZone businesses. So a lot of times when they do the HUBZone set-aside, they say, 10% power to the person that's HUBZone, right? So your price can be a little like 10% higher on the evaluation factor of opportunities if they're comparing you to a regular small business. And the big news this month is on July 1st, the HUBZone map changed. They do update that map from, I would say they kind of had it on freeze during COVID and all that, but then, but typically they do update it about every 5 years. And some businesses that might have been eligible before, not eligible now. As I said, HUBZones can be just a census tract, or it could be a whole county. All Native American land is considered a HUBZone. So if you're living, near or on the reservation, Flathead, or in our Lake County, those are eligible areas. And then also Mineral County and Sanders County near me they're both the whole county's HUBZone. And some of this eligibility changed. Flathead County used to be have a lot of HUBZone. That was all HUBZone, and now it's not anymore. So when the economic status of an area changes, that's when they kind of fall off being HUBZone qualified. And that could affect, that change could have affected you, but if you were a HUBZone, you probably already received notice about that in the last year, since that change was well advertised by SBA and everyone kind of knew it was coming. I just want to ask my PTAC colleagues, are there other full county, I haven't studied the whole map, so in your areas, do you guys have any significant HUBZone areas that you want to mention?
Like you had said on ours, Patty, Flathead, the whole county has been, and we rolled off as of the 1st, so it changed for a bunch of our folks at that point, but right. Otherwise I'm on individual areas still.
Okay. How about, Josie, do you have a county near you? I thought there was one up that way.
Yeah, we have Muscle Shell, but then Malta no longer is a HUBZone. That's okay. One of the major ones of ours. So
yeah, in Missoula, we had a few pockets that were census tracts, and one of those kind of out the Mullen Roadway. That one fell off this year. So it has had some impact, some changes this year. And so, but if you're, it's easy to look your address up on the HUBZone map, and that'd be the first step to say, hey, is my business located there? So now we're going to talk a little bit about the woman-owned small business and economically disadvantaged women-owned small business program. There are two distinct paths you can take when certifying as a woman-owned small business. Each designation, excuse me, the SBA considers a unique sense of NAICS codes for these programs. And we'll talk a little bit about that. There's specific industries that the SBA is identified as underrepresented by women. And so SBA's curated a list that's linkable in this slide and also at their website that talks about what NAICS codes qualify for EDWSB or WOSB. And so you do have to have a NAICS code in one of those areas, not to be eligible to apply, but to be eligible for set aside. And I want to just make that clear. Like if you just want the credentials, woman-owned small business, like, just the credential that you can put on your email or your letterhead or something like that, or use it as a marketing tool, and you're not in this NAICS code, you can still do that. But it is really, this is a federal contracting program, and it does set aside special opportunities for these different categories and in these special industries, right? And so it's good to know that if you qualify for EDWSB, you are automatically a WSB, so you can capture all the NAICS codes, in that sense. And the difference between the programs is the ED, the economically disadvantaged woman has to prove their economic disadvantage through different financial thresholds, similar to the 8A program. So you have to meet all the requirements, basic requirements, owned, controlled by one or more women, that with a net worth less than $750,000, adjusted gross income less or up to $350,000, and no more than $6 million of personal assets. And some things like the value of the business is excluded from some of these numbers, but there's more. Obviously there's a big law that tells you all the details, so I can't fit it all on one slide. So, this is where PTAC can help you determine, am I eligible? I would say that a lot of our small businesses in Montana are eligible because these numbers are fairly high, and, we also have a state that is very spread out and diverse. And so when we think about our businesses, at least me here in Missoula, I have, with the exception of some of my manufacturing companies, or, engineering or services firms, occasionally they have quite a few employees, like over 50 or something like that, or over 100. But even those manufacturing firms, you have to have more than 500 employees to be considered large. And so most of our businesses are owned by, a handful of people, maybe just one person, and one or two people. And so, because of that, some of these thresholds can be a little bit easier to meet for our Montana businesses. So don't disregard it. But just know it's a few extra steps in the process for the program to prove that. So I just like to bring that up because I think sometimes, we all feel so fortunate, but if they're offering a program that can help us, it might be worth sharing your financial information for that. So,
and Patty, I don't mean to interrupt, but I just want to let you know that recently there were made changes actually to the EDWSB. I actually presented a workshop in June. I just want to kind of keep that information consistent. So the net worth were actually bumped up. So
Oh,
what you
okay.
saw is that we're up to now 850. And then average of 3 years is actually right now at 400,000. So you guys would not get confused for those who may be participating in that workshop. So just wanted to kind of clear that out, Patty. I hope it's not interfering with
No,
your
I think
slides, but
it's good. Oh, I think it's good to know because I didn't research those numbers before the slideshow was updated.
so just, yeah, just keep in mind that, you know, you can log on to that link that Patty has. There's the most recent upgrades. It's actually, you can also locate it at that 13 CFR part 127. It's under the subpart B, EDWSB. So if we have any women-owned small business on this workshop, I just want to kind of make sure that if you pursue that EDWSB, that numbers were actually increased. So just check that out, okay?
Yeah, so that's more of an advantage for people now. So that's cool. Thank you,
Thank you,
Teresa.
Patty.
So so next one up is the Veteran Small Business Certification. This moved to the SBA. Actually, this over the last, been transitioning for the last year, year and a half. The program at the SBA is called the Vet Cert. Back in 2021, the Defense Authorization Act, or Congress, decided that the SBA was to take over the veteran certification process. And the reason is to make sure that all these small business programs fell under the same kind of laws and rules. And it was for more consistency, right? And so up until last year, the VA, the Veterans Affairs, Department of Veterans Affairs, or Veterans Affairs Administration is what I sometimes call it. They had managed the verification of veterans that wanted to be certified. And that was for their programs at their agency and at the federal, at the FAA at the time. So they verified, because since they're buying, they're doing the buying, they wanted to make sure that they could buy from veterans. And I think that was the purpose of them doing this verification for many years before it got moved to the SBA. And for other agencies at that time, you weren't required to be certified or verified unless you were doing work with the VA or the FAA. And so they could just self-certify. And so I think the act of Congress in 2021 was to just get more consistency and to kind of level out this VA program with the way it works across all agencies as well, and to provide an easy tool for all agencies to use this small business program rather than just focusing on the one agency. So starting in January of this year, new applications all will be going through the SBA's program. And I just want to talk briefly about the transition from the VA's program to the SBA's program. And so I made some notes on it because it's a little confusing, because there's been some, so up until about November of last year, you could get recertified and kind of get grandfathered in, and you're in the database with VA stuff for all the veterans that were certified before, kind of got moved over to the SBA from the VA, right? And the VA, and then the SBA would confirm all the eligibility, and would be a transition that might be somewhat seamless for those veterans, okay? And then the other thing to talk about during this transfer is that I gotta minimize my little window here, you know. So this history of the transfer, there was a lot of kind of grace periods and extensions and a lot of different details that they put in place so that none of the veteran-owned small businesses or service disabled veterans, whether self-certified or verified with the VA, would kind of run into any big barriers in contracting. And so it's probably good for you to talk to your PTAC advisor about your own situation so they can tell you kind of what all the dates are. So because I just attended and read through a webinar about all these dates, and I'm still getting it clear in my head. So it's pretty much we would help research that and help you learn. But the one thing to know is the extension you could get done at the VA by January 1st, and then you'd be good for the 2 or 3 year period. And then, but if you were, as your expiration comes up, the expiration of your VA, you have to go through the SBA for recertification. And the recertification is not really an open yet here in 2023 yet. The SBA is still working on how that's going to work. And they're going to just keep in communication with businesses as that goes forward. So when, and then PTAC often gets the news of what's coming up as well. So know that we can help you kind of follow through or understand what your next step is depending on where you are in the process. And then service disabled veteran-owned businesses were allowed to self-certify in SAM without any, if they wanted to work for other agencies besides the VA, they could just self-certify in SAM. And that is going to expire at the end of this year. And so businesses that have self-certified, they should probably start getting ready to go through the SBA's vet cert program so that they can be eligible for the set-asides or sole source contracts. But it's important to note that there's no government-wide veteran-owned small business program. But the VA is still going to have its authority to assign veteran-owned small businesses to set aside and sole source contracts with the VA. Getting certified as a veteran-owned small business at the SBA makes your business eligible to compete for those set-asides, but just with the VA. That's one difference between the law that the SBA had before this transition and what the VA allowed in their program. And so know that if you're a service disabled veteran-owned business, that's really the one that could probably go across all agencies and find opportunities for the set-asides and the sole sourcing. So service disabled veteran-owned business, they have 3% goal to hire that many across all agencies. And when it says competition is limited for certain federal contracts, that means that you must be small in the same NAICS code as that agreement puts forth if it's set aside. And when you are certified by the SBA's vet cert program, you would be eligible for set aside and sole source contracts. Because that part's a little confusing. Does anyone have any questions on that right now? I could try to answer them. Okay, I'll take that as no questions. All right. Oh, okay, and this is the rest of the service disabled, the veteran-owned business certification. You meet all requirements of that cert contracting program, be owned and controlled. And that means unconditional ownership and direct control by one or more qualifying veterans. Also, you have to run the daily operation and prove full-time devotion to the company that you want to be recognized for and hold the highest position in the company. Now, the VA, I'm gonna say the veteran certification probably has the most rules around it about the ownership and control than, let's say, the woman-owned small business. Woman-owned small business has quite a few rules that I didn't cover in the slides, right? There's just a lot of rules where you have to prove unconditional control and ownership and talk about affiliated businesses and things like that. But in the veteran program, it's really important to know that really no one can trump the vet. And that is what I'd like to put it. It's like the vet has to can't have, there can't be a partner that could, a partner of the vet that could outvote him at a board meeting. There can't be other board members or other board rules, like if you're a corporation, or that could allow control to go to someone else besides the vet. The veteran has to have the final say in everything in the veteran-owned company. And I'm just oversimplifying that statement, but they do have really good guidance at that VetCert website about all the kind of things that you have to think about as you're preparing the documents. And also understand, what are these terms, ownership and control, and all these different terms, what are those definitions of those terms, and what does it really mean? And that's also where the Apex Accelerator can help you. One of the things that we suggest is, if you're interested in doing these programs, is first contact your government contracting advisor. And they can help you with understanding the different checklists, providing the program requirements. They'll help review your supporting documentation to make sure that, gosh, right here in your articles of incorporation, it says Bob has this right, and Bob is not the woman, we can read them and help you understand it a little bit better. A lot of times I have some businesses that have complicated ownership, and they've worked with their lawyers to provide a lot of different of the documentation too, and information. And I think the one thing that we can help with is kind of helping you prepare to be successful. We cannot help you to actually apply. That is up to the business owner, the majority owner. And in some of these programs, you're allowed to have a delegate. So like if you have your operations manager that's going to help the president apply or something like that, that works out fine to have multiple people in these web apps. They're all web applications. They can have delegates that help them apply, but the PTAC is not allowed to because of a conflict of interest. We can sit side by side with you though and help you read through the questions, make sure you understand, but we don't do any hands-on technical assistance with these kinds of applications. But it can be helpful if you get help in reviewing the documents, and before you get started, to kind of make sure you understand all the steps to doing it, what it's going to look like when you get started. Some programs like the HUBZone program, and this may have changed slightly because they moved it to a new platform. The HUBZone program, typically you had to finish that application in one sitting. But all the other programs, in my experience, you can like come back to it and finish it later. Like if you had to collect additional information, most of everything that you need for these, you're going to have an electronic format, because the government wants to get it and read your articles of incorporation, see your passport, see your tax returns if they have those financial thresholds on it. So just know it does take a little bit of pre-work to get ready, but that's why we're here to provide guidance during the process, okay? And the last slide just has links to both the web page of the program. That's not the Code of Federal Regulations, but those are often linked inside those websites at the SBA. And then the actual application sites, those are in different domains, so there's a different link for the actual application. Most of the application pages also have very good knowledge base and help articles attached to them. And so that's what the purpose of this last slide is. With that being said, I would say that that's the end of what I have to say about it, but I'm open to answering questions, and I'll just stop sharing my screen at this point. And we can chat, talk. And don't be shy, you can ask a question.
Don't have many questions asked.
Oh, Patty, I just had something that maybe we could also let them know that most of these certifications you guys have to maintain. There is a certain renewal requirement, so you have to kind of maintain your certification. So just keep eye on that. Some of them are at the 3 years marks. That might be something that maybe to pay attention to it. So, and it looks like you have a Casey Knudsen raised her hand. So
Okay, Casey.
Hey guys, I just first, I guess, just wanted to thank you for this. This has been a pretty good meeting so far. The question that popped up in my mind, you know, since our HUBZone up in Malta was decertified for this round, do you know what the process is? How those HUBZones are chosen? Is that a state level thing, federal? Kind of how that works?
Yes, the SBA and the HUBZone program, they evaluate many factors. And they have lots of formularies that they use to determine whether there's a high unemployment or the different, it's based on so many different kind of categories that they get resources from all across federal government to determine the HUBZone. And I never, like when I met with the HUBZone at a conference one time, the HUBZone director and stuff, they explained how they do it, but they can't really explain it. It's kind of like they talked about just all these different data points are then analyzed and to determine if it meets the criteria for being historically underutilized. And so that's why they get updated where, you know, if there's like not a high amount of unemployment, there's not a lack of jobs or things like that in a certain area, that might be why your area fell off. I don't know. They don't probably, I mean, if we wrote them a email, I'm sure they would not be able to say, well, the reason Malta fell off is because of this or Flathead. But I think they look at so many economic indicators that it is kind of challenging to know exactly all the parts and pieces that they use.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry if I didn't help with that one, too bad. So. Anyone else have any questions or anything else you want to share?
There was one in the chat box that Teresa picked up on, so I don't know if anybody hasn't looked over in the chat box. Just a clarification on you can only have the certification for 9 years, and that's it, that they expect at that point that you're going to have your company have the knowledge and skills and ability to be able to compete in the federal marketplace.
That's for the 8A program, right?
Correct.
Yeah, the other programs do continue unless it's something like HUBZone, if they change the requirements or if something with your company changes. That's another good point. All these programs require reporting of any material change. So let's say you're a woman-owned small business, and then you decide as the woman owner you're going to go off and not have that business anymore. that, it has to be recertified. Or you have to, maybe there's some change in your, like sometimes things happen in businesses when shareholders come and go, where if there's a redistribution of the financial picture of the company and it's not owned 51% or more by whatever socioeconomic category that you applied for. And when something like that happens, you're required to report those material changes right away. So just know that they're not, and as Teresa said, you have to recertify during the recertification period. And for
I think that's a really good point on that one. And I think you and I had talked about one before that was a woman-owned small business that the mom was the owner of it and had everything set. And then over the years, things transitioned. And then the son had taken over the daily ops. She still owned it, but was pretty much retired and not involved in 100% of the day-to-day activities. And so they were like, oh no, we're definitely a woman-owned small business. And it was like, well, perhaps, but not on certification level because they did have some of those material changes and hadn't updated things. So important to remember.
Right. I had a woman business too that she owned it with her husband and they ended up getting divorced, and they tried to kind of maintain the balance on all that, but it didn't. I think they worked really hard to try to keep the majority ownership with her because she wasn't leaving the business, because of that. And but it didn't quite work out. So they had to kind of regroup and get, report to SBA and then change all the steps, the spots in SAM where they had checked the boxes and stuff. There, there is important to follow up and, get advice on those kind of material changes too from the PTAC. Should you, ever have some transitions in your own businesses. Jessica, you have a question?
Yes, so we just put in all our stuff for the women-owned small business. And I do know it takes a while, especially right now. I think they're behind. But also I was just gonna ask, because I think we already know this, but you can't say you're women-owned small business until you get that certification. Is that correct?
That is.
Okay.
You can say that you're a women-owned business, which is where the nuance is in there that you're not women-owned small business. So
Okay.
you're a women-owned business, but not small business, because that reflects the certification. And so that's kind of how some businesses get around that. But yes.
Oh, I see. But we wanted the certification anyway. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Not a problem. And be prepared that sometimes the response, it's a lengthy process.
Okay, thank you.
No, you're welcome. Yes, you can definitely reach out. And I would say also that with any of these certifications that, like Patty mentioned, please reach out to your advisor, because it's not just a piece of paper to hang on your wall, because most of you are already qualifying under the small business thresholds because you're registered in SAM. So there's a lot of opportunities, and some of the socioeconomic categories might not be exactly the best fit for you. So just also be aware that you can utilize already being a small business to your potential. And then, so talk to your advisor and see if maybe, because like women-owned small business, you're looking at 9 to 12 months certification process. So we're trying to encourage all women-owned businesses to still proceed the opportunities as a small business and don't be, really hang up on that certification. And that's what I would probably highly stress to all of you, to not be discouraged by the set-aside certifications that Patty just outlined. And she did just a phenomenal job explaining all of it, because you still can compete at the meantime, because some of these certifications just are lengthy and take a while. The 8-area program, you have to be in a business for 2 years before you can even apply. And there's, a lot of financial records that you might get hang up and not proceed any other opportunities that they are available. So I don't know if that's kind of something that I always advise my clients on. So I don't know if it would be helpful to you. The SDVOSB is pretty smooth. I don't know how other advisors, what their experience is, but I just have almost like 5 companies that just recently got certified within like last couple months. So I think that is, if you are a service disabled veterans, that would be something to look into it. It's pretty seamless. I don't know how about you guys on the 8A or HUBZone. I see that's pretty hard to maintain. So I don't know. What is your your view on that?
What I would say is that you should look and see, some businesses, I have some businesses that are getting into HUBZones. They are principal office in Mineral County, and everybody that works for the business lives in Mineral County. So it really works out pretty easily, but it can change. I have some HUBZone businesses that are in the Missoula area. And so sometimes the Missoula area changed a lot with the last map change. So that impacted maybe it could have impacted some of the location of where those employees lived and so on. So you want to kind of, if you have these certifications, you want to be monitoring too, what's happening with your people and what are you still in compliant with it as things change for your business. I think it's just always a good idea to, even if you might not have to recertify for 2 or 3 years, you can still kind of just be keeping an eye on it so that you know how to shift or to adapt if there's going to be changes in those programs as well. The other thing I'd like to mention, because it came up as in sam.gov, you can check a box that says woman-owned small business or EDWOSB. As Teresa said, you can't check that box. You can say woman business. It doesn't have the SB on the end. But because you don't want to in SAM be misrepresenting yourself as something you're not. Only the SBA can check the box that says that you're like HUBZone. They have it recorded in the SBA's DSBS dynamic small business search database. That's where people go to confirm that you're actually SBA certified. And so if you're not, and you just think you are, by checking that box in SAM, know that you won't qualify for any set-asides. I found that quite a bit during working with the different fire contractors in the last few years, because they think they were, because they didn't realize there was a certification program out here that they had to go through first. So just be on, just get help from the PTAC advisor and, let us know how we can help you be successful. So.
Patty, and just real quick, Kathy was asking if the recording will be available to everybody at a later date.
Yeah, we're gonna post it on our YouTube channel, and I will do that maybe by sometime late tomorrow. And then I will be sending the slides out to everybody that attended, and then you'll get an evaluation form also automatically tomorrow about to give us feedback on how you like the presentation, or if there's other things that you like to learn. We like to hear about that. So. Well, I'm so glad that everyone could join in. If there's any other questions.
I've got a question.
Oh, go ahead, John.
I'm looking to go on a joint venture with another company. We know each other. He's from another state. How does that affect my certifications? And is it through per contract or is it per overall?
It would depend on your joint venture agreement with the other company and how you guys plan to pursue. Oftentimes joint ventures have a separate SAM registration. and Sam record, and so then they're operating as that joint venture company. It is a more of a complicated question, and so where are you located, John?
I'm in
He's
Billings.
Yeah, he's in Billings. And John, I can follow up with you on that because that is much more complicated. There's actually a specific SBA certification through joint ventures. There are special requirements. So if you don't mind to reach out to me, and I would probably, we can schedule an appointment and go over that with Deanna, who is the nationwide, statewide director, and has experience in that. There were some updates to joint venture recently, so we would have to sit down and we probably have to have a Zoom meeting with also the company that you are interested to do joint ventures. So just reach out to me, okay?
Thanks, Teresa.
You're welcome, John. Good to see you here.
Patty, if I could take it just a second.
Sure, Tom.
I've had at least 4 challenges throughout this entire process over the past 6 to 9 months that I couldn't get through by myself. And I want to compliment in front of everybody, Lynette Hale. She was just absolutely terrific. Worked super hard in assisting me in the certifications and getting everything done for our ANT systems. And I just could not have done any of it at all without Lynette.
Oh, that's nice of you to say, Tom. Lynette's with our Southwest Montana PTAC, and she's not on our call today, but I'll make sure to pass along your compliments.
Yeah, okay.
That's so sweet. Oh, yeah, Casey said that Phillips County is not in the HUBZone map anymore. So any other questions? Anything else we can inspire you with?
All I want to do is say thanks to everyone. Patty.
Yeah, oh, you're welcome, David. We're happy you could learn from us.
I'm gonna have to say bye. I gotta get ready and take my wife to the dentist, so
Okay.
I'll talk